accept that recording if you don't mind. And what we'll do is I'm going to cover a few principles around resilience. So I'll probably do 15 minutes on some slides, some content, just to get us thinking about what builds resilience. Good morning, Pauline. Thank you for joining us. And then what I'm going to do is invite you to go into we'll see how many people are here by then, and Nadim's just joining us as well. Then we'll open up a couple of breakout rooms, maybe 3, and I just invite you to talk about what your experience of resilience, perhaps some of your challenges around resilience, maybe for your teams, and then thinking about the content that we've discussed. Right, how does that help you to build greater resilience for yourself, and then start to think about how do I help my team to do the same? Because as leaders in organizations, there's the old adage, put your oxygen mask on first, right? We have to look after ourselves first, and from that position we're then able to look after our teams. But if we don't put ourselves first, we can sometimes feel a bit compromised ourselves, and it's really important that we get that right. Nadim, thank you for joining us. Good to have you in the group this morning.
Thank you very much. I was just on another call and trying to get off for 9.
No worries at all. No worries at all. Thank you for joining. So let me start with I share. I don't want to go too heavy on the PowerPoint, but I think it's quite useful just to cover some principles. So let me start with some stats. So let me start with some statistics. So this is interesting. There's a lot of work being done, a lot of studies being done on kind of resilience and productivity and the link between the two. This is interesting. I don't know. This is the latest information out of the University of California. They say it takes 23 minutes and 15 seconds to get fully back on task once you've been distracted from your work. So if you're working on something deep, maybe some an important report, or you're building out a plan for your teams, or you're working on something strategically important for your business, when someone comes along and distracts you and you then kind of go in to do something else, whether that's fix a problem or have another conversation, they say the evidence shows for you to get fully back in the zone and back on task can take about 23 minutes. So as leaders, I think we're probably better at switching from one task to another, but for our teams, that's probably true, that it can take them that long once distracted. So really important that we think about the distractions. Then we talk about engagement at work, and engagement. There's some interesting stats around the importance of leadership and engagement, which we won't talk about today, but it's I think the numbers, it's about 70% of engagement is down to the leader, is cited as being important and directly relevant to the leader and their relationship with their teams. And then those people who are highly engaged in their work are 38% more productive. So actually building on engagement, focusing on engagement with our teams is really important because it helps with productivity. And of course, productivity improves resilience. The more productive we feel, the more resilient we are in difficult situations, because we feel we can handle more. And then the University of Florida did some research that said 90-minute intervals of work are when productivity and performance are at their peak, followed by a break. And I don't know if anybody's heard this piece of work, but basically what it says is once you get to 90 minutes, productivity starts to slump. And actually what we're better off doing after a 90-minute stint at work is just to take a short break, 10, 15 minutes, because that allows our body to recharge, and then we can reset and get back into the zone. But if you try and push past 90 minutes, even with the strongest level of discipline and focus, your productivity just starts to slide. So it's worth us remembering that for ourselves and our teams. And then in terms of exercise, the APA, the American Psychological Association, did some work that said people who exercise in the morning are 15% more productive. So done lots of research in here. So actually some form of exercise, it doesn't have to be the gym, but it can be, a walk. It can be any form of exercise that kind of gets the body moving, increases blood flow, circulation, oxygenation. It can be really, really useful for resilience and productivity. So share those with you because they're kind of foundations. And then I like this chart because it kind of helps us to think about what can we do for ourselves and our teams to improve resilience. So we'll start at the beginning. So meaning and purpose, feeling as if we're doing something that's more than just the job, more than just going through the motions. We're actually doing something that has a a higher purpose, a greater contribution. Having positive relationships with the people that we work with and live with is really good for resilience, because that helps you to just feel more in control. Having some kind of social support, so one-to-one relationships and group relationships, team relationships, community relationships, being part of something, part of groups that you or your teams might be able to access. That might be work, it might be personal. Perspective is obviously huge. So do I think about some of the challenges that are coming towards me, some of the workload that's coming towards me, as an opportunity to grow and develop, or do I see it as more work? Perspective is really important for resilience. And I've been on both sides of that situation in the past at work, where I felt actually there's a lot going on, I'm thriving, versus there's a lot going on, how do I manage and prioritize and sort through all this stuff? And see that difference between overwhelm and kind of positive anticipation is all about perspective. We have to help our teams to get that perspective as well sometimes, and sometimes we have to do it for ourselves. And then, of course, energy, which kind of links to a lot of things, which we'll start to talk about. So how do we generate the right energy? Sleep, diet, exercise, nutrition, all of those good things that help generate energy. And I heard a great phrase once or a great perspective once about the way that our bodies and our systems work. We kind of think of ourselves as a battery that drains over time, and actually we should think about ourselves as a power station. The more we use, the more we exercise, the more we use our energy, the more energy we create. So that's quite a nice way to kind of shift your focus, to think, actually, the more I do, the more I can create and generate energy, if I decide to kind of look at it from that perspective. And then priorities are really important. So getting clear on what really is important and what isn't. So having to think about, what are you not going to do? And for your teams, giving them permission, what are they not going to do? And that could be more valuable than, for some people, more valuable than thinking, actually, what are the things I'm going to do, because they can feel overwhelmed by that. So actually, what we're not doing is really important. And then, of course, we talked about engagement, the link between engagement and productivity and resilience. And of course, achievement, feeling as if we are getting things done, that we're moving forward, we're progressing, getting tasks, important tasks done. I would say one of the things that struck me earlier in my career was that recognition that if we get the important tasks done at the expense of the less important tasks, actually we feel really good about that. Whereas if we've got people that are, kind of dabbling, playing around the edges, doing the stuff that is like administrative and not getting to the big stuff, actually that's what starts to reduce resilience and meaning. So helping teams to prioritize the important things is really important. And of course, that leads to achievement. And then the last couple, vitality, which links to energy, but vitality is about yourself, putting yourself first, putting your health and well-being first, feeling as if you have this general vitality in yourself. And sometimes that's a perspective as well. And then finally, positivity, being, finding the positive in any situation, looking for it, because we have to look for it. If we don't look for it, we won't find it. There's so much general negativity going on in the world that we have to keep reorientating ourselves and refocusing on what's positive. And as leaders, very often, thank you. I think Pauline's saying your next presenter slide is on, i.e. audience sees two slides. All right, okay. Thank you. Thank you for that, Pauline. I will check. Let me check what I'm sharing. Because I'm sharing the wrong slide. I'm sharing the wrong screen. Thank you for that, Pauline. I appreciate it. Pauline also says, like the resilience slide, interesting to hear how the group is overcoming challenges, which we're going to go to in our breakouts. This year has been a tough one, but you're going with the flow. Thank you, Pauline. Thank you for sharing that with us. And energy includes energetic connections with the right people, higher subconscious energy from spiritual development. I love that. Yeah, I love that. And sometimes, if we get into businesses and we get into quite serious situations with our teams and our managers and the organizational culture and stuff, and we forget actually the importance of well-being, looking after herself, and as Pauline says, that spiritual energy, whether that's faith or whatever it is for you, or actually just thinking about things that are bigger and more meaningful, that can be really powerful in terms of building resilience. But I also want to just talk about something that personal for us, not as easy to talk to perhaps with our teams, but the importance of sleep. I'm just going to share this slide, right? So when I found some of the stats about sleep, I thought it was fascinating. Man and woman, of course, a human, is the only mammal that willingly delays sleep. Every other species sleeps when they need to sleep. We're the only ones that can put it off. And regular exercise, and as I said, it doesn't have to be going to the gym or doing too strenuous exercise. It can be walking. It can be just mobilizing yourself, getting up and about. Any other time than before bed contributes towards better sleep. So if sleep is a problem, actually getting people moving is a way to improve and overcome it. And they say that between 7 and 9 hours is statistically the ideal amount of sleep for most people. And that sleep is as important as diet and exercise. So when we think about it that way, actually we recognize that it can be the thing that really does either bolster resilience or reduce it. And not enough sleep can increase your appetite, because the leptin production reduces, so then, which is your appetite regulating hormone, so it make you feel hungrier the longer you're awake. And of course, there's lots of other things, that it reduces this cytokine production, which is the protein that strengthens your immune system. So less sleep, if you're not getting enough sleep, you start to feel ill. You might be more susceptible to colds, flu, that kind of thing this time of year. And if you look at the evidence around sleep deprivation, it has the same impact on cognitive function as alcohol. So sleep's really useful. And I know it's like an obvious thing to say, but if you've got people that are struggling with resilience, if they're struggling with their productivity, it is worth checking in. And I've had this conversation with teams I've led over the past, or one individual conversation, just said, how are you sleeping at the moment? Because that is really interesting. That has such a big impact on resilience and productivity. So I don't want to teach you to suck eggs, but just 4 things that can help optimize sleep. The right environment to sleep, so dim light, the right bedding, that kind of thing, temperature, don't be too hot, don't be too cold. The schedule, so actually saying, right, this is the time I'm going to go to bed, this is the time I'm going to wake up, and start to create that as almost fixed, especially during the week, and then decide how many hours you want and stick to it, and that then starts to create a routine. The pre-bed routine is important. Winding down, I have a kind of no digital rule for at least 30 minutes before I go to bed. Actually, it's more like 60. So I don't have any screens on, phones are off and on charge. I tend to read a book for the last 45 minutes or so before I go to bed, just to try and reduce the activity in my mind. And then, of course, managing the day. So the day and the way that you manage the day and the structure helps you to think about how you sleep. And this final bit, as obvious as it sounds, last thing I do before I read, so an hour before bed, is I just make a list of what's on my mind, what are the things that are on my mind. And because they're written down, they're kind of parked, and I can compartmentalize them. And that list is there. The first thing I pick up in the morning is that list, and then I take it into my day. So it's just simple little things that you think, I didn't used to do this, and it used to affect my sleep. And now that I do this, it actually has improved the way I sleep. So then thinking about how you start the day, I'm a fan of a morning routine. So there's a few things I do every morning. One of them is there's this positive psychology routine I do, which I think it links to Pauline's point. So I learned this from Tony Robbins years ago. There are 3 questions I ask myself every morning. Okay. So the first question is, what am I most grateful for in my life right now, with nothing else happening? Right. So it just focuses you on gratitude, and I'm grateful for lots of things: family, friends, stability, living in a safe environment, all that good stuff, right, that we take for granted. So gratitude first. Second, then I ask myself, what am I most excited about in my life right now? What's going on that I should be energized by? And I ask and answer these 2 questions. And the third one is, how do I make sure today is a great day? And I just visualize, just kind of think, right, what have I got going on today? How do I make sure I show up as my best self? How do I just make sure that I'm kind of positively influencing myself and other people? And that's as simple as that sounds. I've been asking myself those 3 questions for probably about 6 or 7 years now, and it completely changes the way I enter every day. And any days where I don't do it, I don't tend to do it so much at weekends. I notice the difference in the energy and the way I feel. So I've got it as positive psychology, really important. Second thing I then do, once I've asked those 3 questions and I'm up, I do some form of exercise every day. It might be some stretching and a bit of yoga. It might be a half an hour walk. It might be a session at the gym, depending on my commitments. But I make sure that I've got at least 30 minutes of some kind of physical activity first thing in the morning. And then that's kind of giving me energy. And then whenever I finish any kind of workout, I do some stretching and just bring myself down and kind of try and calm my mind and my body. And then I'll kind of have a shower, get ready, and I'm up and about. So this is a routine that I stick to, and it generates, I'm sure it's a big part of resilience and why I feel, most days pretty energized and pretty able to move forward. So I share that with you because it's been really useful for me. And I just want to now talk about a top 10 for resilience, and then I'm going to open up some breakout rooms and get you to start to share your ideas. Perhaps think about what you might want to do for yourselves as well. So building resilience, top 10. Number 1, take care of yourself first. We talked about this, put your own oxygen mask on first. And whatever it means for you, but think about, I do think about, psychology, my mind, making sure that I feel good about myself. Physically, my body, managing my energy, my wellness, diet, nutrition. And then I do a bit like Pauline said, I think about, spiritually, I'm not particularly religious, but I also think there's probably something a bit more, there's a bit more to this life than just me being here in this body. There must be something else. So there is a spiritual part of all of us, I think. So for me, that's something that I kind of take care of on a regular basis. Second then is for a lot of your teams as well, knowing your reason why. Why do you do what you do? Why do you come to work every day? Why do you want to be successful in it? Why do you want to contribute towards your team, towards your business, towards your customers, the market? And actually bringing people back to that reason why they do the work they do is a really powerful sense of motivation and builds that resilience. Third then is focusing on, having that focus on opportunities, not problems. Opportunities, not problem. Whenever something comes at me, very often, we'll have problems, whether they're client problems or team problems or market problems or whatever it is. If we can ask ourselves, okay, what's the opportunity in this? It really does help with resilience. It helps the way that we reframe those situations. 4 is about setting and moving towards goals. So being clear on what I'm trying to achieve. And that's good for us as leaders. It's even better for our teams because that helps them with that engagement and focus. Accepting change and taking action. So accepting that things are going to change, and what I'm going to do is take some form of positive action towards making that change stick or integrate it into what I'm doing. 6 is nurturing your key connections, nurture your circle. Reach out to people, send voice notes, send a message to somebody today that perhaps you've got out of touch with, and that can be really useful as well, because you feel like you're getting some control over your network and relationships. 7 is being kind to yourself and to others. So, give yourself a break sometimes. We all have rough patches, and then offer that same sense of kind of kindness to your team members, your managers, your direct reports, everybody. 8 is embrace being the learner. I love this principle. Just think, in every situation, there's something to learn from everyone. You're going to experience that as you go into your breakout rooms next. Embrace the learner. And then 9 is controlling your emotional response. So stuff is constantly happening. When we emotionally react to it, it expels a lot of energy, and it can create stress, which can reduce resilience. So actually starting to learn to just take a greater sense of control when we're responding to situations that come at us and our teams, and being the role model for that with our teams can be really useful, because they'll learn from what we do and how we respond. And then 10, of course, is work on your continual growth and development, which links to being the learner, but actually think about what are the areas that I'm focusing on to grow my capability and develop myself. Okay, I hope that's a useful kind of first, where are we, 20 minutes or so in. So let's, Pauline, love your comment. You agree with the sleep bit. Lucky to get 8 to 10 hours of beauty sleep this year as my time is more flexible. Nice. Plus, it reduces wrinkles and keeps us looking young. Absolutely, it does. Thank you, Pauline. That's great. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, just in case you say I thought he was younger than that. or older than that, I should say. Right, okay. Let me open up, where have we got? Let's open up 3 breakout rooms. I'd love for you to have a conversation then about your experiences of resilience and what, from the session so far, what might you need to do, either differently or from what you've heard, actually, that there's going to be some things in there you think that's interesting, or perhaps not. You might not have thought about it that way, or you might have thought about it that way in the past and not been doing it. So just an opportunity to discuss that with your colleagues today. I've just made 3 random rooms, so you've got a chance to just have a conversation, meet somebody new, do a quick round of introductions, then talk about your experience of resilience, and then what changes you might need to make based on what we covered so far in today's session. I'm going to give you 10 minutes on this. In fact, I'm going to give you 12 minutes because 15 is probably too long, 10 perhaps not quite enough. And then when you come back, if I could ask you, as you have this discussion, just to agree who in your group will just feed back to the rest of the group, because we'll learn from the feedback that you give us as well. So let me open those rooms. 12 minutes. I'll let you know when it's going to close. But I hope you enjoy the conversation. I hope you enjoy meeting your peers, and I'll see you back here in 12 minutes. Thanks, everybody. See you shortly. Useful discussions in your breakout rooms. I'd love to hear. So part of the reason we do this is because one, because it gives you the chance to meet other people, discuss your ideas, learn from other people's experiences. But then as you replay back from the breakout rooms, you'll pick up other additional insights that will be useful for you as well. So I'd love to invite you to kind of share back your discussions and what really landed for you in terms of this session today. So let's start with our first group, which was Emma, Ristina, and Leanne. So who would like to feedback from that group? Thanks, Harry. No problem. No problem. We might get to your group. We'll try and get to your group next, Harry, so that you can jump off.
We lost
Harry's got
Emma.
9:45. So who was that? Who was that? Is that Leanne or is that Christina?
No, that was me. I think we lost Emma. Okay, I can go. Leanne, you can join me anytime I miss out on something. So let's do this. Hi everyone, I'm Christina. I had a great group actually and a great chat with Leanne. I think the first thing that it was brought to my attention was that our home life. So it's not just about work and resilience. We get home, we have our own chores, no any more pleasures, like we like to say now, being adults with responsibilities. So that kind of can exhaust you in a way, can take away from your energy, sleep deprivations, you can be hungry and then get to work.
Yeah.
And then you have to deal with the challenges, but you already come with a bag of your own challenges, shall I say. So you're a little bit less resilient, so things can get through you more faster than any other normal day, let's say, if you have a good day. So that's one factor we kind of put into that. And another thing was, I was saying to Leanne from my own experience, I used to be a resilient person, or I used to think I was, until I got into a position where I had to manage some lovely people, but other group that wasn't as easy to manage. So I realized how much I needed to work on my resilience. So it took, I was saying to Leanne, about 2 years for me to build up confidence, more or less.
Wow.
The way I did that was basically sending myself through courses. I went back, I did some master courses, I learned about leadership and management. I put myself through uncomfortable situations, so I grew, and my focus was elsewhere than having these kind of challenges every day with a difficult group. So it took about 2 years for me to develop a little bit of knowledge, or more than I used to have, and that gave me confidence, which then in return I was able to be more resilient when I was dealing with this challenging group. So for me, that was how I got more resilient, but I firmly believe that it's a work in progress. So I think resilience is something we just have to keep adding on because there'll be other situations where it's new. And so if I miss out on anything, Leanne, please.
No, you're absolutely doing perfect. You're doing extremely well.
Oh, well, thank you, and thank you for listening.
Wow. Christina, thanks for sharing that with us. That's really useful. It'll be useful for people on the call as well, especially if you know, as you go through more difficult periods, it can hit your resilience. It can start to undermine the way that you think about yourself, and it does take rebuilding.
Yes.
And it's really, really useful for you to be open with us and share. Thank you. I genuinely appreciate that.
Thank you.
I learned that I like you, I do a lot of growth, personal growth and development and professional growth and development. I learned this principle probably 4 or 5 years ago. I heard a guy, I don't know if anybody's heard of a guy called Tom Billier. He does different podcasts and he's got a YouTube channel. He's really interesting. He's a guy from the US, and he talks about this principle called anti-fragile. So starting to think about ourselves as becoming anti-fragile. What does that mean? It means that as things come at us, as challenges hit us, as difficult situations come towards us, we start to think about ourselves as becoming, rather than becoming more fragile, becoming less fragile. Kind of moments of growth, strengthening our resolve, strengthening our ability to deal with things as we deal with more things. The more we're able to cope with, the stronger we get. We become anti-fragile, and it's something that sticks with me. If I have periods of time where like stuff gets tough, I kind of bring myself back to, you know, actually, how do I become anti-fragile? How do I use this to become stronger going forward? It's a bit like what you've just said, Christina, as you were explaining your situation. Thank you for sharing that with us. That's really, really good. Okay, nice. Group 2 was Harry, Pauline, and Simon. So I'd love to hear from your group. I don't know what you did. You decide who would share back?
Yes, I think it was me.
Well volunteered, Simon.
Yeah, we had a good discussion with myself, Pauline, and Harry. Pauline kicked off for us and broke the ice, and I think she relayed how the fact that actually she takes a very proactive approach to managing and building her and maintaining her resilience. She is very clearly setting out the personal health and well-being that through the routines and the activities she follows, and also on the mental and educational side, making sure that she's keeping that resilience, keeping the social aspects going through attending conferences and seminars. She may be, I think, and this is a personal comment, a little bit more lucky than most as she lives in central London, or works in London. So some of that is a bit more, as someone who's lived in London and now doesn't, some of that is a bit more accessible in larger urban areas than in less urban areas. But still, you take advantage of your local environment. So that was very positive. So I was very impressed with Pauline's structured and proactive approach to building and maintaining her resilience. I think Harry and I then really, I think both highlighted, we feel that we naturally adopt some of those resilience measures, but not through necessarily a structured approach, thinking of how we build resilience. So some of them appear as part of our routines, but not as necessarily as part of a daily schedule, a Riven daily schedule, that kind of thing. So just through, I guess, what makes naturally us feel positive is what we get involved in, whether that be exercise or whatever, trying to get the right amount of sleep.
Yeah,
I think where we then turned to was really, I think, trying to think about and question how we build resilience in others, in groups and teams. And I think in my past working roles and Harry's at the moment, being responsible for a group or a team of varying sizes, how do you you know, build this resilience in the team? How do you take the team on that journey? We talked about, you know, not in any depth, more as a list really, about, you know, creating the right environment, role modeling the right behaviors, putting, you know, in the past, I've been part of, you know, rolling out wellness programs, which I think, you know, kind of transform to resilience, I think, or contribute to resilience. And I guess then, and we didn't really talk about it, you know, we try and give people goals and objectives in our organizations to make clear focus. That helps achievement and helps that sense of pride, and also, you know, recognizing teams, not necessarily individuals. I think, you know, I'm probably really old, but years ago you didn't really recognize teams. It was all about the individual, and now we do a lot more team recognition, I think, which is good about building, you know, team resilience and team motivation. But that's really where we got to. We didn't come to answers, but we had lots of questions, I think.
Good. No, it's good. Thanks, Simon. Sometimes once you set those questions for yourself, you'll then start to pursue the answers. You know, that's the thing. I think it's you know, this stuff is as Christina said, it's an ongoing process. It's like a journey. You just got to keep focusing on it. One of the things that I've found is really useful is that structure and routine. If you kind of haven't got to think about it, because there's a lot of energy that shows just some of the decisions that we have to make, especially when we're in leadership positions. Some of the decisions that we make start to reduce our kind of resilience and your energy. So actually, if you don't have to decide what you're doing in the morning because it's a routine and you're just going to get into it on autopilot and it's stuff you know is going to fuel resilience, actually you put in place the foundations to strengthen and improve your resolve. So sometimes I think that's a really important way for us to think about building resilience, with almost on autopilot.
Yeah, and that goes back to standard work in a lean environment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Simon. Yeah, setting up your environment to succeed. Thanks, Simon. Really good discussions. Pauline, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to jump to group 3 because we are a bit tight for time. Then I'll come back to kind of open it up, if that's all right. Thanks, Pauline. So group 3 was Dorcas, Nadeem, and Stephen. Who would like to share from that group?
I can go if Dorcas, Nadeem, do you want to?
I think it's
fine,
you,
Stephen. That's fine, Stephen.
Yeah. So I think we recognised the fact that all of the things you were saying were probably things that we already know. Some of them we do, some of them maybe we neglect a bit. But what we focused on in our group was the kind of sort of pinpoint the things that we're either struggling with the most or have made a difference. So I won't talk about names and associate them with what was said, because there was a bit of personal stuff in there as well. But one of them was one of the things that made a difference for one of us was to make a conscious decision to move into an industry that gave us that daily motivation of delivering something over and above, you know, wealth in your back pocket, but actually is trying to contribute to a greater good. Which has made a huge difference. You know, even though I presume most of us are in sales leadership positions where you're generally meant to be an optimist, or that's, you know, a general characteristic you might apply to people in our sector. But that's made a big difference. And then the other big thing that came up was the sort of outside of work with family commitments and tragedies and responsibilities, how much those responsibilities and the kind of worry and the commitments that you have to make to family members can actually affect, you know, sleep. And we're not just talking about, you know, being there for someone on the phone, but actually, you know, consciously spending a lot of time with a bereaved family member. And trying to do the right thing, not just by your own family and children, but also, you know, a parent, and, you know, running your own business. And the thing that seems to have taken a back seat is the individual.
Yeah.
their self-care, and just and also the biggest thing that's been disrupted is sleep. And then sleep came up again with another one of us, where sort of this general psychology of thinking I'm too little, I'm not good enough, I can be better, and being a warrior, I know a lot of people that have that, family members that overthink and just struggle to get the right sleep, which then can have an impact on your perspective and the way you think, and your general, so that's kind of a constant development area for one of our group.
Yeah. Thanks, Stephen, for so eloquently putting that across on behalf of your group, and thanks for the maintaining that anonymity as well. That's really good. And it's funny, isn't it? Because, well, not funny. It's interesting that there's so much going on in most people's lives that all we think that a lot of our focus is on the work, the business, the things we're trying to achieve. But if we don't get our lives in a good place, that it affects everything. It affects our performance, it affects our positivity, it affects resilience, and all of the things that contribute towards making us operate and feel good about ourselves in the world, which links directly to performance and results in a business. But we very often can overlook it without realizing we're overlooking it. So for ourselves and for our teams. Yeah.
Justin, just one thing that I watched actually the last few days that kind of, I think, highlights how you just don't see the other side of a person at work is, I don't know if you've seen the documentary on Ronnie O'Sullivan, The Edge of Everything.
I did see that. Yes, I did.
And you sort of think he's this genius snooker player that's got all the talent and attributes and is the greatest, player of all time.
Yeah.
But you actually goes behind the scene and shows you just the struggle that he goes through to actually even just get out there and play, and all the mental kind of turbulence that's going on, inside his head. I thought it magnified just how important this is.
Yeah.
To be able to, and he's obviously worked on it for about 10 years with a psychologist that works with him daily.
Yes, Steve Peters. Yeah.
But it really shocked me, because just never would have even thought that would be happening.
No, I completely agree. And the things that happened earlier in his life that start to put context towards why perhaps he'd have had some of those struggles. It's remarkable, really remarkable. It's definitely worth a watch for people who are interested in peak performance and what goes on behind the scenes. It's really interesting. Ronnie O'Sullivan's very interesting guy, and the way he thinks is really interesting, isn't it? Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that, Stephen. And in the chat, you'll see Pauline. Thank you. Pauline shared the Anti-Fragile YouTube video. Thank you. And Pauline's connection as well. So if you want to link up with Pauline, please do. If you want to put your LinkedIn connections in the chat, please do that, and you'll have the chance to connect with each other. Really good conversation this morning, everybody. Thank you. I will just ask you to just think about now for a moment. Oh, and Pauline shared the link to the Ronnie O'Sullivan documentary as well. Pauline, you're on it this morning. Thank you very much. You're definitely feeling resilient and productive. So just get you to think from today's session, what other, one or two things you might need to either revisit or refocus on for yourself. And if you are leading a team, for your team, because, we said get ourselves in a good place, have a structure, have the right regime that gives us that ability to build resilience. And from there, we can share, ideas with our teams. We can have much more meaningful conversations and recognize where sometimes, I always think, I'm sure you're all familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We've certainly covered it in a previous session, but thinking about, that first foundation is about, wellness, just kind of feeling good about ourselves, safety, security. And if any of your team don't have that fundamental layer in place, trying to help them to improve performance or think about growth, it just won't happen, because they've got to get back to those fundamentals of building resilience, building wellness and well-being for themselves. So it's a really good reminder for any of us that especially as we're leading teams, because stuff goes on in people's lives, just to come back to some of those fundamentals so that people can perform at the level that we need them to. I'm conscious that we're approaching the hour. Final thing I would just like to offer to you all is, if anybody is kind of interested in a one-to-one to go a bit deeper on this conversation, and talk, not just, we can talk about resilience, or we can talk about anything that's going on for you in your business or for your teams. If you would like a one-to-one, I do offer a complimentary kind of coaching session as an early kind of discovery. It's just about giving you a bit of space, an external perspective on stuff. And from there, if it's useful, it will be useful. There's always some stuff that you get from a one-to-one conversation. From there, hopefully it gives you some ideas. If you want to go further from that point of view, happy to share, you know, how I work and what I do, but there's no commitment at that stage. But it can be really useful just to have an external perspective on perhaps there's stuff going on for you in your business right now. Okay, I do want us to conclude so that you can all get to your 10 o'clocks. I'm sure you've all got that. Huge thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. These sessions only work because you're here. If I was here on my own, it just wouldn't work. So I really genuinely appreciate you being here. I'm not around next week. I am going to put in a session for the week before Christmas. I'll confirm dates on email and through LinkedIn. And then we'll break for Christmas, and then I'll start again. We'll be running a weekly workshop from January. So if you find this useful, you want to join this community, join us each week, and we'll start to hopefully build a bit of a community of leaders and people going through this kind of same development journey. So thank you all again. Really appreciate it. Have a great day. Thank you everybody for your contributions in the breakout groups as well. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you in a couple of weeks' time. All right, thanks everyone. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Justin. Take care.
Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Justin.
Bye. Let's
Cheers.
stay
Pleasure.
connected.
Pleasure. Thank you, everyone. Bye.